Check 1, 2.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Hello, hello. Oh my goodness, I'm late. It's 7:01. I never be this late. As half of you know, I am very on time. All right, what are we doing here? This is Shabbat. You've arrived. So I'm going to have to separate some people. They're talking. Where is my cue sheet? Here it is. Page 10. We find the words to the psalm, Hine Matov. How wonderful it is that we, as friends, as family, as community, can come together in prayer and Shabbat.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
So I know the rain scared some of you away. I'm talking to those of you who are online right now, watching. The rest of you wild cards that drove here, and half of you are here for Shabbat, half of you are here for the speaker. I get it, I understand, and I'm not naming names, but but we will make it work together. What we're going to do is to give the most amount of time we can to our speaker, but also get Shabbat. We're going to abbreviate like we have in the past a little bit of the service so that we have enough time for both, because we want to be out of here within 2 hours. So we just want to make sure that we keep our 3-hour service to as short as we can. So page 2, I'm just going to go ahead and why don't you help me on the bottom of page 3, why don't you read for me, for us as a community. Let's do it together. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to the acts of kindness, peace, and love. So we light the candles, and as many of you know, we can't light candles on Shabbat, so we do a little trick. We bring in the lights, and we close our eyes while we recite the blessing. And if you don't know the blessing, you put little fingers through your eyes, through your fingers, so you can see the blessing. If you have to look at the page, then go ahead.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של השבת.
As we take our hands away. It is Shabbat, but we recite the prayer in English. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat. And with a broken heart, we light a third candle. We're thinking about those who are not at a Shabbat table tonight, the hostages in Gaza. We are on 154 days that they have not been home for Shabbat, and by lighting the Shabbat candle, we don't forget. We think of and recall as we continue our Shabbat service with Cantor. Where are we going?
We're going to start with page 12 with Lechu Neranena.
Love page 12.
Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena l'Adonai. Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena, Lechu Neranena l'Adonai. נריע, נריע לצור אישנו, נקדמה פניו בתודה. נריע, נריע לצור אישנו, בזמירות נריע לו. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני.
So before we get into the actual part of the service, that's the main part of the prayers, the part from the candle blessing until the call to prayer is called Kabbalat Shabbat, which is the sort of welcoming Shabbat section, putting us into the mood. So we have, I think, 3 total songs, the prayers that we're doing. We just did Lechuna Ranana, which is Psalm 95, and we'll continue with Shalom Aleichem on page 24. The Psalms we know from the Bible, but Shalom Aleichem is more of a 17th century poem turned into a song, very Kabbalistic. If you've heard of Kabbalah, this is a Kabbalistic poem from the city of Sfat in the north of Israel. I'm going to make this service 2 hours long just by talking. My bad. Let's just get to the Kabbalat Shabbat. Here we go.
Important information. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Oy, 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 mi melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. Let's continue with Lecha Dodi, page 20. We're going back in time. We're getting extra minutes for that. We're going to sing the verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And on the last one, on verse 9, we will stand up and face the door to welcome Shabbat.
Cantor, why are we going to stand and face the door to welcome Shabbat? What's that a metaphor?
Because we are welcoming the Queen. Shabbat HaMalka, it's as if we are standing, and same as you do as for a bride or for a queen, you stand up, you face her as she walks down the aisle. So you can imagine that Shabbat entering our hearts and entering our house. So that is why.
I told our regulars that throughout the course of the semester, students from our Introduction to Judaism class will be coming. Well, a lot of them came tonight, so plugging in a few extra pointers here and there. This is a good example of keva and kavanah, where the action of standing and facing the entrance at the same time of thinking about the spirit of Shabbat as if she were bride into the room. This is a good example. Page 20.
לחתותי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לחתותי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Verse 1. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Verse 5. התעוררי, כי באורך ומאורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Verse 9. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובתהילה, תוך אמונעם סגולה. בואי חלה, לך דודי לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
So there it was. If you're looking for the moment, when did Shabbat really come? We just welcomed Shabbat into the room, into our hearts and our souls. So all you're allowed to do is wish the person next to you Shabbat Shalom. But nothing else, we don't have time. So just say Shabbat Shalom. Quick. Okay, that's too much. Page 20. No. Remember that time you were afraid you were going to do something wrong? Yeah, that was it. Page 20, page 28. At least you did it together. That's what's nice about it. All for one and one for all. Page 28. This is, I've used this metaphor before, kind of like at the beginning of a concert. We've gotten to the welcome part. Now we're going to start the service of the prayers. So page 28 is loosely as if you walk out on stage and someone says, "Are you guys ready? Are you ready to rock?" And then everyone in the audience says, "Yeah!" And they're like, no, seriously, are you ready? Well, the first line and second line of the Baruch Hu is in essence, are you ready to pray? And your response is, yeah. So we don't really say that, but we bow. So the first line, the leaders are the first line because we're the ones, are you ready? And you bow on the second line, which says, yes, we are. Got it? It's on the quiz. I'm just saying. Remember that.
Lie, la, lie, 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 lie. We sing together. Lie, la, lie, 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 lie. Lie, la, lie, 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 la, lie, 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 lie. Lie, la, lie, 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 lie. Lie, la, lie, 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 la, lie, 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 lie. Lie, la, lie, 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 lie. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך, המבורך לעולם ועד. המבורך, המבורך לעולם ועד.
We remain standing as we turn to page 34, where we find the statement. I've said before, there's no dogma in Judaism, but if we did, this would be the closest thing we have to it. The statement of monotheism, the belief in one God, and our witness of our actions in the oneness of God. So page 34, 35, it's spread out across the page. In the Hebrew, it says, "Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one."
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
Okay, only every other person can sit down. Just wanted to say, you can sit down, I'm kidding, I just messing with you. Page 36, just wanted to see what happened. I love it when they're just right there. They're just right there in your hand, just so mean, so mean. Page 36, we find the next verse. So Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4 is the Shema, but Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5, the next verse is the V'ahavta, a.k.a. the next page. Let's sing, chant V'ahavta, and if it's okay, if you don't know the Hebrew, because it's written in the transliteration right there. So no excuses. Okay, here we go.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
So for many of us, we sing these prayers every week, and we know the melodies, and we know them. But sometimes when you have, I don't know, a group of people who may be here for the first time, you realize that everything we sing is in Hebrew. It's like, I was just looking ahead. I'm like, yep, that's in Hebrew too. Yep, that's in Hebrew too. And so the service, if we had more time, we would look at why. What are these? What's the rubric? What's the sections of each prayer? We're going through, the call to prayer, and then there's a theme of creation and revelation, and then we're now at redemption, by the way. So that's what the Mi Chamocha is on the next page, page 40. Redemption is the story of exiting Egypt and remembering that the miracle that happened for the Israelites is not just a miracle that happened, but it's a miracle that continues to happen, and it's our job to sort of look up and see the miracles that are happening, and that's why we have this prayer on page 40 in our service.
Lai 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 la lai la 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 lai 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 la lai la 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 lai la lai la lai 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 la la lai lai la 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 lai la 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 lai. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלי ענו ואמרו, זה אלי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. לי 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 La 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 la.
So Jews don't pray one night a week. Jewish prayer is 3 times a day, 7 days a week. We just happen to show up one day a week on a Friday night. So with that being said, we have only on Friday nights, we have this one prayer that gets inserted on page 44. Any idea what the theme of that prayer is? And I'll give you a hint. It starts with sh, it ends with a bat. Any ideas? Shabbat is the correct answer. That's right. The Shabbat prayer, a reminder from the text from Scripture that we are to keep Shabbat and observing Shabbat as a reminder of the covenant between us and the Jewish people. So Veshamru is on page 44 at the top.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדותם ברית עולם.
So earlier I mentioned that in the service there's these prescriptions of prayers that we have, themes of the service. Now we get to what we would ostensibly call the middle, for lack of a better word, the climax of the service, which really, ironically, is a prayer for ourselves. It's a moment for self-reflection, a moment of personal prayer, sort of pausing from the prayers of the book and turning inward. And we do that on page 46 by asking that God open up our lips, that our mouth may declare your praise, and give us the chance to offer our own reflections. So we're going to do page 46, and then we're just going to do a silent personal reflection, and you're going to be seated when you're done. So page 46, we'll sing together, we'll open the ark, and then when you're done with your personal prayer, you may have a seat. Make sense? Hey, everyone up.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
We're going to continue to add one more prayer to we have the prescription prayers, we have our personal prayer, and then Reform Judaism, really out of the 1970s, added another prayer that into the service that has always been there, it just never was formally part of the prayer service, and that is a prayer of healing and wholeness for a loved one, whether it's ourselves or a family member or a friend or a community. So the prayer of healing and wholeness is not really, we believe that if I say this prayer that something, will be cured. Sometimes a prayer of healing is a prayer of wholeness. And when something's broken, we hope that we can find wholeness in the brokenness. So physical brokenness brokenness can be physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all kinds of different brokenness that we hope to find wholeness, shalom, peace with on this Shabbat. So as I look around, if you wish to share a name of someone that you're thinking of, you can say it out loud, just so that you don't feel weird. I'll start on this side and go back this way, because we do say names out loud. And if you want to say a name in your heart, that's fine too. So we'll invite anyone who wishes to share. So we'll find the words to our prayer of Amisha Berach, a prayer of healing and wholeness, on page 253 in the middle of the page.
מי שברך אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו, may the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. מי שברך אמותינו מקור הברכה לאבותינו, bless those in need of healing with רפואה שלמה, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
So it is my privilege to invite up Paul Rockauer, who's the Executive Director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Phoenix. He is formerly the Executive Director of the, is it Levantine? Okay, I'm just going to go with Levantine Public Diplomacy, an independent public diplomacy organization. He has managed State Department public diplomacy programs in dozens of countries around the world, including many countries in conflict. He has worked with multiple foreign ministries, including Israel, India, and Taiwan. And I'm going to cut it off there because if I really read his entire bio, we would be here for another hour, because he has lots of cool experience and makes him super qualified to talk about fighting anti-Semitism today, how we can be strategic when dealing with anti-Semitism. And I'm grateful that Paul has given up his time to be with us this Shabbat. Paul, Temple Kol Ami, Paul Rockauer, did you hit your on button on the side?
I don't think
No, I did, but I will. Oh, no, wait. Boop.
There we go.
All right, man.
Are we cooking? We are cooking. Shalom, friends. Got to check my levels. Shalom to everyone out there in TV land. It is an honor to spend Shabbat with you. Rabbi Schneider and the Kol Ami community have been such tremendous friends and supporters of the work of the JCRC. For that, we're grateful. I want to honor my board chair, Alan Zajcik, who is here today, and Carol, great friend. I am here this Shabbat to discuss strategic responses to rising anti-Semitism. I know this is an issue of great concern for our community, but I'm here to offer a little bit of optimism and a little hope. For those who don't know me, my background's in diplomacy, conflict management, and strategic communications. As Rabbi Schneider mentioned, I did media and public diplomacy for the Israeli Foreign Ministry. I was a press officer during the Second Intifada and the Gaza disengagement. I've done public diplomacy work with India and Taiwan. And for years, I ran State Department public diplomacy programs in countries in conflict, everywhere from Algeria to Iraq to Venezuela to Zimbabwe. It was literally anti-Semitism that brought me here. It was deep concerns over rising anti-Semitism after Charlottesville and Pittsburgh that led me to Phoenix to help the Jewish community and other vulnerable communities get through difficult times. I came out to Arizona to fight Nazis in the desert, and frankly, Arizona has not disappointed. So at the JCRC, we do a few things. We do the strategic communications, the diplomacy, and the conflict management on behalf of the Jewish community and with other vulnerable communities. Unfortunately, we have a lot of experience in the crisis management space, so we often assist other vulnerable communities who are not used to dealing with crisis. Part of our soft power, the power of us being a light into the nations, is helping other vulnerable communities deal with crisis, since unfortunately, We know how to do it. We're better at it than most because we often have to deal with it. When not dealing in crisis, we do advocacy, interfaith outreach, and community bridge building on behalf of the Jewish community. We create coalitions of support for any threatened or vulnerable communities so that no community in Arizona faces hate alone. We maintain the network of relationships on behalf of the Jewish community with different faith and ethnic community partners, with law enforcement, and with civic leadership, as well as with the press. We often serve as a press office for the Jewish community, getting the right voice to the fore. Sometimes that's the JCRC, sometimes that's the ADL, sometimes that's a rabbinic voice. Your rabbi does a phenomenal job whenever I put a microphone in front of him. Sometimes that's a Holocaust survivor. On campus, that's ASU, ASU Hillel, or a student voice, but we make sure it's the right voice speaking on behalf of the community. So we do public diplomacy to help other communities understand what keeps the Jewish community up at night. Rising anti-Semitism, specifically the situation in Israel right now. And we help the Jewish community understand what keeps other communities up at night. Systemic racism, the asylum issue, Islamophobia, all sorts of things. If you want allies, you have to be an ally. And if you want to be an ally, the time to meet your friends and your neighbors is not when your house is on fire, not when their house is on fire. You have to build these relations ahead of time. So there can be a lot that keeps the Jewish community up at night. These are difficult times. It's compounded by the fact that our communal lens is based on historical trauma, something that our enemies often try to exploit. I've been here in the trenches for over 5 years now and can share with you some of the best practices and case studies how we fight anti-Semitism strategically and effectively. If we respond to incidents in a strategic fashion, we can effectively handle these incidents of anti-Semitism and reduce the tenor of concern around rising anti-Semitism and best manage this present situation. Some of this is a little counterintuitive, I realize, but what I'm trying to do with you tonight is socialize best practices for a strategic and effective response to incidents that will help mitigate and manage our situation. I want us to use our Jewish brains to help fight against anti-Semitism. So, first counterintuitive lesson, we all know that if you see something, you say something. You stand up, we all want to be good upstanders and speak out against hate wherever we see it. However, our adversaries often use that against us and use our own responses on social media and in the media to amplify their vile hate speech. So what I want us to do is not be terrorized by those who are trying to make us think that they are bigger than they really are and using our insecurities against us. I've been fighting a shadow war for these last few years against the Goyim Defense League. I want you to raise your hand if you've heard of the Goyim Defense League. Alan, you don't get to raise your hand. Carol, no. How many of you have heard of the Goyim Defense League? I'm doing my job really well then. None of you have heard of them. So the Goyim Defense League is a franchise neo-Nazi group across the country. It's small fringe extremist groups that link up with this national brand, and they have a contest trying to provoke us into amplifying their work and give them attention. They try and terrorize our community by throwing out vile flyers, anti-Semitic flyers, racist flyers, with the hopes that they will provoke us to get a reaction in the media or on social media. They want us to amplify their work, and we make it easy for them way too often. So we at the JCRC, we work to deny them the attention that they're seeking. We often reach out and we'll spike stories, we smother stories. We reach out to journalists and explain to them, we know who these people are. It's an extremely small group. I can count them on one hand, the number of members here in Arizona. And frankly, they're losers. We know where these schmucks live. They live in their parents' basements. They're losers. And so if you find an ugly flyer in your neighborhood, if you find something posted in a friend's neighborhood, if you find something anywhere around that's an anti-Semitic flyer, don't post it online. Don't put it up on social media or in a WhatsApp group. Don't immediately spread their message or alert the press, because the press can be rapacious and they can often fetishize hate for ratings. So what I want you to do is, if you see something, say something to those who can help. Reach out to the JCRC, reach out to the Anti-Defamation League, reach out to your rabbi, let him know. He comes right to me. We spike a lot of things together. Reach out to Nancy Drapin, reach out to Detective Michael Hillman of the Phoenix Police Department. Reach out to those who can best deal with the situation, and we can figure out if we need to amplify things or if we need to smother it. So you know, the JCRC, we keep an intelligence bureau. I keep one of the best investigative journalists in the country on retainer. He is a specialist at extremists, and he tracks extremists in deep, dark spaces on the web. He's one of the best, and we keep him on retainer to focus on things locally here. We use this journalist to make sure that we're in the deepest, darkest spaces so we can field things early and get an early warning on people who want to do us harm. We like to say if they're dumb enough to say it, we're smart enough to listen, and we can get ahead of things and get early warnings out there. But again, that's being strategic. Now, there's a different situation, though, is what happens if it's already in the press? We had a situation some years back in 2021 where the Aryan Nations, another neo-Nazi group, did a round of flyering in Glendale, Litchfield Park, and El Mirage. And we found out about it in the Arizona Republic. There was already a story about it when we heard about it. And in the story, there was a lot of buck passing among municipal leadership. You know, each mayor said, it's not really my space. And it led to a sense of a lack of support among the community members. So we got together and we created a coalition of community partners, the NAACP, Chicanos por la Causa, the Muslim community, one community which is an LGBTQ leadership group here, the Arizona Faith Network. And we worked together and wrote a joint coalition letter to all of the mayors sharing our concerns that citizens felt vulnerable and unsupported. And we offered our organizations as resources against hate. Thanks to that letter, the Glendale mayor issued a proclamation at the Glendale City Council on the eve of Yom Kippur in 2021, declaring Glendale to be a haven of tolerance and inclusivity and would stand against the harassment of its citizens. Like this, we can make some lemonade out of these bad situations. Now, one more case study for you. How many of you heard about a neo-Nazi rally here in April of 2021? I see a couple of you nodding, 3. Okay, so a few of you. So we received word some 6 weeks prior that the National Socialist Movement, the neo-Nazi movement, was planning on having a rally here at the Arizona Capitol. We decided that their main goal was to gain publicity through provocative behavior because the last time they had been here in 2010, there had been a media circus. We had a dozen neo-Nazis surrounded by a phalanx of police officers and scores of counter-protesters, and it got ugly. There were bottles thrown, there was tear gas, and the Nazis got everything they wanted. They wanted attention. There was a dozen camera crews taking pictures of all of this. It got widespread coverage. We figured that they wanted something similar in this situation to bait us and use images of violence because even vile Nazis do vile public diplomacy for their cause. So we wanted to use some Jewish brains in the situation and try and deny them the goals that they were seeking. So we coordinated with partners in the Jewish community and other different faith and ethnic community partners to stand in solidarity against hate in the safest, most effective way possible, by staying away. We want you to strategically stay away from the situation. Don't take the bait. We worked with experts at ASU's Public Safety Innovation Lab, whose specialty it is to advise police and law enforcement on violence prevention and community safety best practices during public protests as a means of socializing best practices with police so that we could slow down the situation. And we partnered with a group called Cure Violence Global, which treats violence and extremism from an epidemiological standpoint, to do a media webinar for all of the local media to educate them on how to cover these events without amplifying it. We got into the intelligence spaces where we started with all of the intel work. We were in close contact with partners in law enforcement, and leading up to the rally, we're coordinating with different law enforcement to increase security around Jewish spaces. When the rally finally happened, thankfully it passed relatively peacefully and uneventfully. We had a little more than a dozen of this sorted group that came out with a dozen counter-protesters, and everything was measured. Nothing escalated, the coverage was quiet, and the group left Phoenix with no real stories and no attention and significant coverage, to the point that even the Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks extremist threats, didn't even know about the neo-Nazi march here in April of 21. That's how good we did at smothering this. But it's not just about smothering. We can also be proactive in Jewish security and the security of other vulnerable communities. We passed something last year called the Arizona Nonprofit Security Grant Program, SB 1713. This was to create a local state-based security grant program to aid small and medium-sized houses of worship to complement the federal program that already exists. There's a federal program that's robust but cumbersome. It's difficult to apply for small houses of worship because it's a reimbursement program. There's a lot of synagogues that don't have the capital for the security. So the bill, which was sponsored by Senator David Gowan and was led through a multi-faith coalition by the Arizona Faith Network, of which we sit on the board, passed this bipartisan legislation to help provide a more user-friendly program, created a more streamlined application for those houses of worship unable to apply to the federal program, and it's a grant program, so it doesn't require the capital outlay that the federal program does. And this bill appropriated $5 million over 5 years for security funding for small and medium-sized houses of worship. So we can do some really amazing things when we work together as a community and we build these faith coalitions. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the work being done post-October 7th. We help do Israeli public diplomacy. We help manage that bipartisan relationship for the state of Israel and the state of Arizona. We work as a bit of an annex for the Israeli consulate to help keep them abreast on the landscape here. After October 7th, we helped organize the Solidarity Gathering, which brought out over 3,000 members of the Jewish community out in support. Your rabbi was instrumental on that. You really should be proud of him. I'm going to talk about him like he's not even here. We often serve as the press office for the Jewish community, helping share stories that brought Jewish and Israeli-American lenses out into the local press and local outlets. Most recently, we had an Arizona Mirror op-ed on International Holocaust Remembrance Day in relation from the Phoenix Holocaust Association in relation to the hostages in Gaza. And we also had an Arizona Republic story about a Holocaust survivor speaking at a local school. So we help elevate those voices of the Jewish community. And we often push back when stories are unbalanced or unfair or lack context. And then we've done all sorts of things like lighting the Capitol up in blue in support of the state of Israel. We're working with the Attorney General's office on a commission on rising anti-Semitism, where a friend of mine here was just at the DOJ. We had a Department of Justice United Against Hate event just the other week. So we've been liaising with different faith and ethnic communities over the complexity of the situation, with the African American community, LGBTQ community, with a lot of the mainline Protestants, a lot of communities that don't always hold the same lens on this, but we work with them to help them understand the trauma of the situation. They don't have to see things the same way we do, but understand how it hits the Jewish community in a traumatic fashion. We've been shoring up support with our pro-Israel allies in the evangelical and LDS community, with the Mormons, and we've been liaising with police and the FBI to help protect the Jewish community through these difficult times. Also, I know a lot of you are concerned about the situation on campus. I got to tell you, we've got a wonderful ASU Hillel here. They're holding things down on campus. They're doing excellent work. We spend a lot of time trying to disconnect the national tenor of concern from the local reality. If you feel safe in your neighborhood, you probably are. It's not an easy time, but we're better off here in Arizona than most places. So in closing, I want you to remember, if you see something, say something to the right people, to the right audience, to the JCRC, to the ADL, to your rabbi, but don't take the bait. Don't be confused by groups that are small and insignificant. Reach out so we can assess and deal with the situation strategically, effectively, and bring in partners to support the situation. Ignore your social media, ignore the national press, ground yourself locally, and take a deep breath. We're going to get through this. I'm going to end my talk here with you with a quote from my favorite British bulldog, Winston Churchill, who said, "The further back you look, the farther forward you can see." When I worked for the Israeli Foreign Ministry, I had a postcard on my desk. It had this long list of all the historical foes we faced. It had the Babylonians with a line through it, the Assyrians with a line through it, the Romans with a line through it, the Crusaders, Nazis, all of them with a line through them. I ended my tenure at the Israeli consulate getting to cross out Yasser Arafat and Saddam Hussein myself with a black Sharpie pen. This too shall pass. Like my postcard, we'll get to cross out some of these others who threaten our community, be it Sinwar and Hamas, or be it schmucks like the Goyim Defense League. L'dor v'dor, we will face challenges and threats. L'dor v'dor, we will get through these threats, but we can only do it if we use Jewish brains and act strategically. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Yashikah. Paul, stay here. We're Jewish. We have opinions about what you've said here tonight. And and we want to express those to your face, not just talk about you behind your back. So you know what I mean. What I mean is, maybe you have a question. This is your chance. If I don't like your question, we'll have run out of time. If you have a statement to make, please make it during Oneg. Does anyone have a brief question they wish to ask?
In the form of a question.
In the form of a question, exactly.
As Kissinger liked to say, do you have any questions for my answers?
That's good.
Right.
Bert.
How do we get the media to project more news about the even as something as simple as the holidays?
Your rabbi was in the Rosh Hashanah in the Arizona Republic. We work with that.
Even the minor holidays.
We work on that as a press office. We had stories on Hanukkah in a few outlets. We had Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. We've had a lot. I want everyone to raise their hand. How many people have a subscription to the Arizona Republic? Okay, good. How many of you have a subscription to the Jewish News? Great. You all are far better. There were stories. There were stories about Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Around what?
So the non-Jewish community learns about their Jewish neighbors?
Yeah, these were stories in the Arizona Republic about, yeah. KJZZ, we had stories, we had. I mean, good point. We did have some stuff on KJZZ. We do work with TV. TV is not always the best medium to tell stories on this. It's a little easier working for more complex stories in print or in radio. TV gets a little more sensational. We can always do more on TV. That's a good question.
Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. Are you familiar with what's happening right now in North Carolina with the governor's race?
I am, but I focus solely on Arizona, and I get to duck things because I focus all my attention right here on Arizona.
So my question relates to that in the sense, if that happened in Arizona, how would that be dealt with by the Jewish Community Relations Council?
So we did have a governor's race.
Do you want a
of which we
quick
were...
summary of what happened? That was what you know.
So there is one of the candidates is somewhat anti-Semitic. To be gentle. Right. To be diplomatic, to say he's somewhat anti-Semitic. We've had some situations. So the last governor's race, we were throwing punches at Kari Lake when she hugged a neo-Nazi in Oklahoma. We were in the news a lot, going with Mark Fincham when he was, spouting anti-Semitic tropes. We threw a lot of punches in the last race, and we'll probably throw a lot of punches this coming election. Look, we can disagree on policy, but when you use anti-Semitic tropes for political purposes, we're going to punch you.
Great.
And we're not shy.
Great.
You, sir.
Hi, thanks. So you're mentioning the not to cover, you talked about the neo-Nazis at the rally, and you talked about depriving them of what they were seeking, right?
Yeah.
And you said something about the media, training the media to cover the story without amplifying it. What does that mean?
So we worked on some of the best practices that we helped socialize to the media was taking pictures of the emptiness, the sparseness of it if you're going to do it, or don't cover it ahead of time, cover it after the fact. Don't give a platform to the Nazis. Don't amplify their voice. Talk to the counter-protesters. There are all sorts of ways of how to strategically cover it after, so that you're not giving more attention to it before it happens. There was a whole webinar we did about how to handle this strategically, because you want to frame it so that people understand this is a very small group and not amplify it. And it frustrates me to no end when I see all these stories and we've dealt with other outlets. See, TV, whoever was talking about TV is the more rapacious side of things. We have had to push back to TV stations who have covered a swastika chalk thing on the ground, and we literally had it cleaned up, and they did a story the next day after it was already gone. And so we had a meeting with their news director to say, you're ginning up stories, you're not covering the news, you're making it. So a lot of it is just working directly with the media when things are out of whack, when they're making news and not reporting it. It takes connections, it takes relationships. I have a wonderful person on my board, Jen Rogers of Hudson West PR. I think she's actually
Temple Kol Ami
Yeah,
member.
Temple Kol Ami. Yeah, see, I told you, Kol Ami has hooked us up. We work with Jen closely on the media relations, and some of it is just reaching out. Like there have been some stories related to the Israel stuff that what's been going on, where we had to reach out to the editor and say, hey, you just put From River to Sea blithely in there without understanding the context behind this. Like, your reporter doesn't have the depth of this. You either need to correct this or, run better stories to understand what's going on here. We're not fetishizing, Jewish Voices for Peace doesn't represent the Jewish community. Don't fetishize that one Jewish voice who's in that rally by going right to them. Like, speak to the Jewish community, who represent the Jewish community, not outside voices.
Beautiful. That's
Great
a
question.
great place to end.
Okay.
I'm going to encourage you to grab Paul after services. Do you have a card on you?
Of course.
Of course. So grab a card. He'll love to chat with you. Email with him. Buy him a cookie at Oneg and tell him how great he is. Because I can tell you, having been out there on the front lines with him, I know, we acknowledge that we do some stuff. As you know, I'm the president of the Board of Rabbis. We've talked about that, so we've done some good stuff together. And I'm really grateful to what the JCRC, Alan, what you're doing, and especially having Paul as a face of the Jewish community. What a face it is. Look at that punam.
The next time you see me, I won't look the same.
Thank you very much, Paul. We're going to move to conclude our service because I believe in an hour. So I want you to know that tomorrow morning we'll still have Torah study. It is still online. If you're interested or don't know the link, just ask me. Next Friday, no tomorrow, but you have something tomorrow. Go for it.
So tomorrow night is our new moon gathering, women's gathering for the new moon. We're going to talk about the second month of Adar, which is coming up in a few days. And of course, we're going to talk about Esther and masks and all kinds of other things that I can't share with you. So you're just going to have to come tomorrow. If you want to join us, either let me know or sign up. There's an online sign-up sheet. So I hope you can join us.
2 weeks from tonight, I totally blanked on Tuesday night to tell you guys that in 2 weeks is the holiday of Purim. And so no matter which synagogue you go to, there will be a Purim celebration at every synagogue. Purim is Saturday night. That's the most normal way to celebrate it is on Saturday night in 2 weeks from now. However, we at Kol Ami are making it a weekend, because why not? So 2 weeks from tonight, we will have a Shabbat service that is all Beatles themed. However, since it's our Purim Beatles themed Shabbat, we will do the service Purim Purim is meant to be super silly, super fun, super crazy, and so we're going to do that service Beatles music, but differently. It'll have a fun, a very comedic thread through the evening. So that's 2 weeks from tonight. 2 weeks from tomorrow night, our Purim celebration is music bingo night, because we're going to put the fun in Purim. Anyway, it's in there. It's Pur Funum. Anyway, and then on Sunday is our family's celebration of Purim. All of our kindergarten through 12th graders.
So Saturday is adult
only. Thank you
Right,
for mentioning
so that was
that.
the point.
Saturday
Adult
night is drinks and music bingo, a little bit of telling the story of Purim, etc. So a lot going on in 2 weeks, and that's the news. That's all there's the fit. We're going to include, we're going to cut Eleni, but we're going to keep Kaddish, which is the prayer for acknowledging loved ones that we may have lost in recent days, or those that we lost at this season in years past who may be observing a yard site. If you wish to share the name of a loved one, I invite you to stand and to share their name and remain standing. You're gonna go in order, like you're just gonna stand up if you have a name to share. So then everyone else is going to join on page, please rise, on page 294. We're going to all rise as we think about our loved ones that we've lost at this season, years past, as we recite this prayer of thanksgiving. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yotev lamich machutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kudesha brechu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Ve'hei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Zichronam levracha. May all of those who we've thought about and recalled and remembering, may their names and memories be for a blessing as we recall. Page 5, we make Shabbat, we make a blessing of Shabbat using the Kiddush cup.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratoin inchilanu zikaron למעשה וראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Chaim. In feeling grateful for the assets of the Jewish Community Relations Council in our community and having not only the executive director but the chair of the board, Alan, and Carol, why don't you come up too? And Paul, will you join us for the Motzi, a prayer of thanksgiving for all that we have. The challah represents bounty, and we are feeling grateful for the incredible resource the JCRC, the Jewish Community Relations Council, provides to us, the Jewish community. So thank you for what you do for us.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם המוציא לחם מן הארץ בתיאבון.
And our closing song, which is on page 294, we will sing Oseh Shalom, and then we invite all of you to put your prayer books back on the shelf, and we're going to go to the social hall, i.e. the classroom, where we will find dessert.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. היי, לה 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 Shabbat Shalom, everybody.